is back for another episode. Today, we're covering probably one of the most influential albums of our youth, or I should say of our college years, Stone Temple Pilots' Core. STP kind of reinventing themselves or coming back with a new singer with a new recent release. So we thought we'd go back all the way to when it started and review the first album that has stuck with us in so many ways ever since our college years.
Yeah, for me, it's probably one of the, to Chuck's point, most influential records. I still play the album to this day on a regular basis. There's no question the influence that this band has had on me, and Weiland specifically, and just his vocals and the chameleon type nature that he has, over the years, and the side bands that they've done, whether it was Velvet Revolver or the Wild Abouts or Talk Show, Art of Anarchy. There's been a whole host of different iterations of bands that STP has kind of drifted off into. But to your point, they just came back with a new album, self-titled album. Just came out last week. Pretty good record. And we'll probably cover that at some point in the future.
We'll cover it when it comes out on vinyl. I was a little disappointed. We have to wait a couple months for the vinyl release. And hey, we got to stick to our roots. We're vinyl vagrants.
That's
so
right.
Until we get a copy on vinyl, we'll have to wait to review that.
That's right. But for today, it's all about Core. And really, for me, it's a very dark and brooding type of record. Just has it's interesting for Stone Temple Pilots. It has the same sound from start to finish, right? The same groove. It has very, very fat chords, and it feels like Led Zeppelin on steroids throughout much of the record. Dean DeLeo, the guitar player, was very influenced by 70s rock, and just the sound, like I said, from Dead and Bloated all the way to Where the River Goes, it has the same fluid sound throughout, whereas on Purple and Tiny Music and Number 4, they certainly branched out where there isn't a singular identifiable sound to the record. Each song has its own, vibe and feel. Whereas on this album, it's just a straight burn all the way through.
And Stone Temple Pilots, they took a lot of heat when this album came out. And, it baffled me then. It baffled me. Well, actually, now the criticism has kind of faded away because they more than proved themselves with their follow-up releases. But when this album came out, just literally 6 months after bands like, Pearl Jam hit with Alive and Nirvana with Nevermind, they said, just because this came it's not like this came 3 years later. It came 6 months later. And they're like, oh, this is a band trying to copy the Seattle sound. They're ripping off Pearl Jam. They're ripping off Nirvana. They're ripping off Alice in Chains. Yeah. It was ridiculous. And, getting back to the sound, the overall groove of this album or the darkness, the producer, Brendan O'Brien, he actually was inspired by Bob Ezrin for coming up with the sound of this album, and he produced, of course, Kiss Destroyer, and he also worked with Pink Floyd and
Alice Cooper,
and it was through his conversations with Bob Ezrin that he decided how to basically place the mics in the room and have this concert-like recording session that added to the overall end result.
It did sound huge. Eric Kretz's drums are just booming, and him and Robert DeLeo, the bass player, they have this really tight vibe together, and it all really runs so seamless throughout. It's a very enjoyable record for me. Not being much of a lyrics person, I don't really follow the lyrics too much, but from a musical perspective, it just, again, same heat burn all the way through. Cavernous is probably a word.
That's a good way to describe it.
It's kind of, like I said, dark and a bit mysterious throughout, and what a great album.
Also, me being the lyricist, I do appreciate the good lyrics. One of the impressive things about this album is that Scott Weiland was writing these lyrics. He was 23 years old. He's a kid. You know, I remember when the first video for Sex Type Thing struck on MTV. I'll never forget seeing this shirtless punk with red dyed hair looking like he wants to kick your ass, you know? And I'm like, who is this guy? And to your statement earlier, so many of the songs from the opening track, Dead and Bloated, and of course following up with Sex Type Thing, it just hits you with this wall of sound, this wall of aggression. And, you know, to me, they made their mark instantly. I didn't see copycats or any, you know, they were following anybody's lead. They were just there to, you know, to kick your ass.
Yeah. And Brendan O'Brien, he's notorious for producing most all of Pearl Jam's records too.
Right.
So there was that kind of fluidity, right? You know, if you're going to make some type of comparison, it's probably not all too surprising that he produced all of STP's and all of Pearl Jam's records. So
yeah, but then, you know, just before we get into the songs, I just want to make one thing clear about Scott Weiland. Of course, for us, I feel Scott Weiland is hands down the greatest rock and roll frontman of our generation. To see the way he commands a stage, lyrically, much more talented than Eddie Vedder. I don't care what anybody says, the legendary Pearl Jam. Look, I love Pearl Jam. I respect Eddie Vedder. He does what he does, but he didn't have the range that Scott Weiland could pull off. And, you know, they would say, oh, Scott's trying to copy Kurt Cobain here. Here he's trying to copy Eddie Vedder. No, Scott's being Scott. And Scott is David Bowie, Mick Jagger, Steven Tyler, all rolled up into one. And when you see him get on that stage and start doing his thing and, you know, grooving to the songs, it's like, this is what it's all about. And
he kind of loses himself. You know, he's got that bluesy baritone, and he's very like emotional, right? Physically telling. You know,
yes.
He can almost kind of tell a story in just his physical movements when he's on a stage where he just loses himself.
Nobody can dance to rock and roll like Scott Weiland danced on stage. It was a pleasure to watch.
Yeah, and we basically saw them on almost every tour after. I don't believe I ever saw them on the Core tour.
No, not that early.
But we saw them on the Purple tour and every tour after that, and almost every iteration of his solo work and everything else. So
and we saw him, maybe at his peak at the Riv. And then we saw him...
Which they released on DVD, by the way.
Yes. And then we saw him many years later after his struggles when he cleaned up for a bit at the Horseshoe Casino. And I feel so lucky that we got to witness that show. I don't know the exact year, but he put on a timeless performance, and he was clean and things were going well. And I'm glad we caught it, because shortly after that, he just kind of went down the path that he did.
Yeah, we did see that One House of Blues solo tour where you could tell there was
his
something
best
off
days were behind him.
Yeah, with this performance, and it was just a shame. I did really enjoy his last album, Blaster, with Wildabouts. I really liked that album. But, either way, at the end of the day, we're here to celebrate Core and Weiland and the DeLeo brothers and Eric Kretz. And again, what a phenomenal record. What a way to finish off 1992.
Exactly. So, let's get to the music.
Let's do it. All right, track one of Core, Dead and Bloated. What a cool opener. Starts off with Weiland just singing right into the guitar pickup through Dean's Les Paul. I am smelling like a rose that somebody gave me on my birthday deathbed.
There's not too many people our age. Not too many people our age who can't finish that line.
No, and just talk about a missile right out of the gates. I love the tune. It's heavy. Comes in with the drums. Bam, bam.
Yeah, that intro through the guitar pickup, and then the wall of sound we mentioned earlier. It just kicks in. And Robert DeLeo, he was working at a guitar shop. All right, and then Scott Weiland has the ultimate job of just chauffeuring. Scott Weiland was the first Uber driver for not supermodels but models.
Right.
And between the time he had to pick people up, he would go across the street and hum these, not the lyrics, but he would hum the melodies to Robert, and then Robert would try and put them into music. And Dead and Bloated, that's how this song was put together.
Yeah, what a cool opener. I just it's one of those songs that just, I mean, it gets the blood pumping. And, again, I'm not really quite sure what the lyrics mean of it all, but,
No.
It's something obviously that triggered in him, and it's a great opener, and talk about just fat open chords, and, yeah, it's just a trailblazer.
Yeah.
Sets the album tone right away.
Great opening song. Dead and Bloated. Alright, track 2, Sex Type Thing. Probably my favorite song on the album. This is the song that started it all for me. This was the video I saw that one day in college, watching MTV, and just being blown away by the anger and aggression in Scott Weiland's delivery and the overall look of the video, which was, I guess, a popular technique at the time. The way they looked, the effects they added to it. But
controversial.
Very controversial given the subject matter. A song about rape. Interestingly enough, lyrically, he twisted the point of view. He definitely wasn't pro-rape, but he said, "I'm gonna look at this through the eyes of the offender." And I remember being so inspired by this song. I was in a fiction writing class in college at the time, and I took this song and I decided to write a short story based all around the song, and I actually used parts of the lyrics in part of the song where he breaks that part and it goes, "Here I come, I come, I come," and I used just snippets of as the story progressed, and probably much like this song, maybe that wasn't the best choice for me. I remember my professor, who also taught the women's literature class in our school. She was very upset by my story, and
Really?
she wrote a nice little paragraph to me saying, "Look, this is not, it shouldn't be so easy for you to write something like this." And again, it wasn't coming from me. Like, I was trying to do the same thing that he did with these lyrics. I was just inspired by the lyrics to turn that into a short story. Probably not a smart move on my part, and we're getting way away from the music. It's not important, but I'm just trying to say that that this song really stuck with me. It's probably one of my top 10 all favorite songs of that I've grown up with.
Well, I think just based on that is worth telling the story.
Yeah.
I never heard that story until now.
There you go.
So, yeah, it's a great tune. I think it was the first single. I don't think the record label Atlantic Records allowed them to release any official singles. They wanted them to buy the record itself as opposed to buying singles.
Right.
I remember when the song came out, I remember being more influenced by the video itself, right? The blonde hair and just the the camera angles and the speed of which everything was going on. It was interesting at the time. For me, it's not. I have other favorites on the record, but there's no doubt the influence that the song had. And then finally, to your point, once it was identified that Weiland is not a supporter of that type of thing and that he's pro women, as is the band. When people started to understand, okay, this is why they're really singing the song.
And and they also explained, they're like, at the time there was an explosion in these really violent lyrics, and they talk about being influenced by Ice-T, NWA, and just portraying violence happening in society through the music. And they also mentioned this was kind of inspired a little bit by a Led Zeppelin song off of Physical Graffiti called In the Light.
Okay.
So musically, they maybe took a little Zeppelin, but they took the current trends of the booming rap movement that was happening at the time and put it all together, and they came up with a classic.
Yeah, I mean, it still factors into their set list, throughout their career. So, A lot of the songs from this album really do, but this certainly is one of them.
All right. Sex type thing.
Alright, song 3, Wicked Garden. I think it's the fourth quasi-single released from the album. Very catchy tune, catchy chorus. You had mentioned offline that you had thought the song itself was about kind of some of the struggles of the band coming to grips with the record industry and things of that nature. It does have some interesting lyrics, For me, it's a great tune. But it's one of those songs that, I don't go out of my way to purposely play, but it's a great song. If that makes sense.
It's definitely not a skip for me. It's in the upper half as far as I'm concerned in the album of my favorites. But yeah, I think lyrically he said it just kind of represented not Stone Temple Pilots losing their innocence, so to speak, but kind of dealing with the shadier sides and, of trying to make it in the music industry. But a great tune.
Real cool tune.
Wicked Garden.
Wicked Garden.
All right, next we're going to cover the next 2 songs on the album as they kind of blend together. Songs 4 and 5. No Memory, the musical interlude that introduces song 5, Sin. No Memory is just a great musical short. And I remember reading from one of the DeLeo brothers, they said that often when Scott would sing his songs, he would try and get into a character to deliver the song, much like he would get on character on stage when he would, dance to these tunes. But and he said he came up with No Memory to try and set the mood, to try and set the tone. And boy, I think he hit it out of the park.
I love No Memory, even though it's just a minute and a half instrumental. It's one of those things where the ambiance and the tone it sets for the following song, Sin, which is probably my second favorite song on the album. It really is cool. It just starts with just simple guitar chords and the bass kicks in, and yeah, it's a 90 seconds of drama.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
It kind of leads into the next song, which is probably the darkest song on the entire album, in my opinion. And I love the opening chords of Sin. I mean, or the chord, I should say. Just that strum. It just. Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, musically, it is one of the stronger songs. And to me, that song, the music of that song, overtakes the lyrics, and I just find myself listening to it musically.
So for me, I actually think about the lyrics on this one because I'm never a lyric person. And, Down You Go and Suffer Long. I mean, it's just the way he sings it. It's the delivery of Weiland that makes the song for me, in addition to the chords and the music. For this one, there's something about the song that just resonates with me so much, even though I don't consider myself a very dark person. And wanting people to suffer or anything like that, but just there's something going on in his headspace that just, he felt that, it's almost probably when he got done singing the song was probably some type of catharsis. It was just a really emotionally driven tune, and I just couldn't imagine what it was like to be there, to your point, when he's creating these characters and when he's singing these songs, and how that one came out is just really cool.
And Dean DeLeo, he mentions when writing the song, he used a very simple chord that he hadn't really experimented much before, and he said it was so powerful to him. It became one of his favorite chords. He ended up using it in a few more future songs like Meat Plow and Tripping on a Hole in a Paper Heart. I mean, it was accidental discovery by him in putting this song out.
It's a great discovery.
Yeah. Sin.
No Memory. Alright, track 6, side 1, Naked Sunday. Bit of a skip on this one for me. I know the lyrics kind of pertain a little bit to, the ministry and, preachers on a Sunday and just I'm not really quite sure where Weiland was going with this. I know it has a lot of ska influences, and the intro with the drums was pretty cool. Like that echo, and it comes in and then it just kicks in. But it's kind of just it's a really ragged, rugged song for me. It has a lot of rough edges, and I think it was one of the first songs that they did on the record. And it just, I don't know. I know that the band really enjoys it, but for me, it's not really a player.
It might have been, and I could be wrong on this, but it might have been the first song they recorded as Mighty Joe Young, which is, of course, their original name for their band. Nice little tribute to a sequel to a King Kong movie. I'm big fans of King Kong ourselves.
Huge.
But yeah, Naked Sunday, to me, it sounds like a demo. It sounds like an unfinished product. Not a favorite of mine. If there's one skip on the album, this is it.
Right. It's probably a good thing they stick it right there in the middle of the record.
Yeah.
This way you can.
Although it would have been nice at the end, and I could just skip it.
Hit the discharge button.
Yeah, stop.
Naked Sunday.
Naked Sunday. Alright, the last song on side one of the album, Creep, which by all accounts, when Stone Temple Pilots was putting together this album, they really felt that this was their strongest song on the album. I remember reading in multiple articles about how they said when we finished Creep, we really thought we had something special. And it is a great song. I wouldn't rate it as the best song on the album, but it's definitely, again, top half of the album as far as favorites go. He talks about it being inspired by many of the songs he listened to in the 70s on AM radio. And I know we have had that conversation in the past. If you want to talk a little bit about that, about what AM radio meant to us.
It was everything. When we were growing up, I mean, that was the only thing you got on your car, right? When we were kids.
Yep, in the backseat of the parents' car.
Yeah, and just listening to bands like Chicago and Blood, Sweat, and Tears, and Led Zeppelin to some degree.
And he actually talks about one of our favorites. This that inspired him to the song was Gordon Lightfoot. Oh, he talks about listening to AM radio, Gordon Lightfoot, Jim Croce, even John Denver.
Yeah, Cat Stevens.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, Gordon Lightfoot. Oh,
and
classic Canadian.
So he talks about how there was a little country influence also to this song, not calling it a country song, but again, 70s AM radio. Country influence.
And it definitely has that vibe. And the delivery, again, is so simple. Turned out to be a big hit for them. And actually, on the record, on the 25th anniversary re-release, they played the version that actually had the extra bar in it, the extra verse. And it was right of them to go and remove that. And I remember listening to the unplugged version where it accentuates one of the verses or the choruses in the song. It just really made this song even more powerful for me. It is one of my favorites on the record, for what would be dubbed a country song, if you will. But yeah, what a cool maybe song.
More
cool
of a
video
cowboy.
too.
Maybe more of a cowboy song.
I think that's how even the DeLeo brothers referenced.
Yes.
Yeah.
And again, the media. Oh, look, Scott's trying to sound like Kurt Cobain in this song. Why? Because he slows it down. I don't get it. I don't see that at all.
No, I hear a good song.
Yeah,
that's it.
Song.
Plain and simple. Cool video. I think they made 2 videos.
Yeah.
One that they could air, and the other one I think was what Gus Van Sant had directed it, and it wasn't allowed. It wasn't good for television viewers or younger audiences.
Right.
But what a cool tune. It definitely sets the tone and kind of eases into side 1. And for the onslaught that starts side 2.
All right. Creep.
All right. Side 2, track 1, Piece of Pie. This song opens up with a blast furnace of sound. It's probably one of my most favorite recorded songs in all of rock history.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really saying something.
From the vocals to the music, just the way Weiland delivers the chorus and his howling out. I don't really have much to say about the song other than it's one of my absolute favorites ever. and I probably played this song as many times as I've played any song of my favorites. There's nothing to say other than the fact that it's, for me, this is core to me.
Okay, I can't top that. I love the intro. The intro is great, and it's a great song to open side to. After that, once it gets to the chorus, to me, at times it seems a little repetitive. It kind of goes on and on at that same effect, I guess, that he's looking for. But in no way am I saying that it's a bad song.
It does drone a little bit,
and it's not a skip for me at all. But my favorite part is the opening.
Yeah, I mean, just the drums and the guitar and. Yeah, it's just, and then just the riff. I mean,
signature Stone Temple Pilots sound with this one.
Yeah, that's just all Les Paul, all, like I said, Led Zeppelin on steroids. Just the groove and just the chorus. Oh, I can't get enough of the song. So
can't get enough pieces of pie.
Piece of pie.
Side 2, song 2 is the big one. Grammy award-winning Best Hard Rock Performance by a Band, Plush.
Yeah, the only Grammy they won.
The only Grammy they won. Definitely one of their best songs, no doubt. And I think immediately when I think of Plush, though, I go straight to the unplugged version from, of all things, Headbangers Ball. You have to love that connection. Maybe one of their softer songs as far as Stone Temple Pilots goes, and they put it on Hairbangers Ball and acoustically,
no less.
And that version just exploded and brought even more life to what is one of Scott Weiland's greatest vocal performances in my mind.
Yeah, and it was one of those songs, I think, that was written a la like the Beatles, A Day in the Life. Weiland and Kretz were reading a newspaper and saw this article about some woman in San Diego who was murdered, and hence the dogs will smell her, and obviously the investigation,
finding the body
else. Yeah, but it really is a good tune. I mean, it was probably one of the songs that unfortunately was overplayed. Yeah, kind of like a Man in the Box from Alice in Chains, or
yes.
Alive from Pearl Jam, but 25 years later, the song still resonates, it still kicks. I prefer the electric version, but the acoustic version is just awesome. But for me, the purity of the electric version, I suppose one could call acoustic being pure as well, but for me, I just enjoy the electric version better, and what can you say, as a Grammy winner?
Yeah, it's a great song. I do lean towards the acoustic version, and in fact, I've even heard versions where it's just Weiland's voice by itself. Yeah. And that's a treat, and at this point, it's haunting, because that, again, he was a great singer with a lot of talent, and he showcases it here.
Definitely.
Plush.
All right, side 2, song 3 and 4. Wet My Bed and Cracker Man, kind of another interlude similar to side 1 with No Memory and Sin, only there's no setting a tone here. I think Wet My Bed was actually the first pure recorded piece that they did with Brendan O'Brien. The little thing that says, all right, now what? And, it's an interesting choice to include this clip on the record. Yeah. For me, I suppose if I had to skip through one thing, it would probably be this or Naked Sunday. But, it is what it is. It sets a tone, but then it has that crack, no pun intended, for the following song.
And I don't skip Wet My Bed. I like it. I do think it's cool that they included it. It's just an artistic touch. Scott Weiland doing his best Jim Morrison impression, and as ridiculous as it is, there's something kind of cool and, in my mind, artistic to include this between the songs. Kind of breaks them up a little bit, but I appreciate the whatever they're trying to do. I like it. I like it when bands throw little creative things into their album, and it's not just, you know, about the music as far as, you know, you get a little surprise here and there, and nice added touch in my mind. Okay, the next song 4, side 2, Cracker Man. And I gotta say, this is probably my second favorite song on the album. I love Cracker Man. I love it on the album. I love it live. The song just rolls. Starts with that opening crack, and it never lets you down through the whole thing. What your
it's a hard chugger, man. Yeah, I mean with the police bullhorn, I mean, and the cool thing is that any band could pull this off. I remember we saw Velvet Revolver did this song, you know, at the Riv, and yeah, what a tune. I mean, this is probably a staple in their life set throughout their career. It cranks. I think the genesis of the lyrics was more about the drug dealer, you know, and the challenges, you know, surrounding that situation. But you don't think about that. It's just, this is another one of those hard chuggers with the music that just goes through, and use the bullhorn for added effect. Again, kind of that creative, you know, nuance that Weiland just adds to the songs. It just makes it a really cool tune.
Yeah, and the band was actually, they were living 1 block away from Skid Row when they were putting the album together. And there was a homeless guy who actually went by the name of Cracker Man that Weiland befriended. And he would buy him coffee sometimes, he would take him food. And so, yeah, the song was partially inspired by him. But, and again, at the time, this song was, oh, here's Stone Temple Pilots trying to sound like Alice in Chains. You know, again, looking at these comparisons, I don't know what the purpose was.
And we love Alice in Chains.
Yes, but this song stands on its own, and it's probably my second favorite song on the album.
It's awesome. It's
Cracker Man.
All right, album closer, side 2, Where the River Goes. Long one, about an 8-minute tune. This is one that Weiland wrote with Dean. And probably outside of Creep, you know, just has that lumbering sound throughout, right? You know, it's just, you know, it's not a favorite song, but I like it.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those things where it's a surprising end, because most of the album is so heavy and in your face and rapid fire. And then you just have this one, you know, just very simple start, you know, with the snare and you know, it just kind of just makes its way through. And next thing you know, it's like, wow, it's like 8 minutes long. Yeah. It's like, you know, and you know, there is kind of some, you know, kind of you mentioned with Piece of Pie earlier, some droning or repetitiveness. Mm-hmm. You know, this is probably the song that I feel that way about. You know, but I still love the song. I don't skip this song.
No.
It's just an interesting choice. But I suppose if you're going to bookend an album, you know, that starts off with Dead and Bloated, you know, I suppose, you know, this is Where the River Goes, right? Yeah. And you're just going to follow through with that. But good tune.
Yeah, great song. Just a great rock and roll song. Earlier I mentioned, I thought Naked Sunday was the first song recorded with Mighty Joe Young. It was actually this one, Where the River Goes. This was the one I was thinking of. But just a solid rock tune. Definitely not a skip. Nice way to end one of the classic great rock and roll albums of the 90s.
I think after Plush and Cracker Man, you kind of just need a little bit of a break. You sit back and you can just hear the song, let it play itself out, and what a finish. And who'd have thought leading up to Purple, you know, you wouldn't have guessed the 180 that this band would take leading up to their next album after finishing the entirety of Core, which we just did.
Right, yeah. It was Stone Temple Pilots. They kicked the door down, and they continue to open new doors each album they put out. And I look forward to reviewing those as we move on throughout this musical journey through Vagrant Vinyl. Stone Temple Pilots, Core.
That's right. Check it.